I know. We've been talking a lot about cap and trade on this show, and you're probably thinking, what about all the other bills that actually passed this year? Well, don't worry. We're going to talk about them today. Yep, all three of them. And when you got to get to work by 9.
You are made of dust, and to dust you shall return.
But get in good with God by 8. And we're going back into the KGW vault.
We are bringing you live coverage of the total eclipse of the sun.
41 years ago today.
It was just such a, incredible feeling.
Here's the story.
Total eclipse of the sun. I'm Dan Haggerty. Welcome to the story. Thank you for being with us. The show where it is easier than ever to have your name dropped on TV. All you got to do is talk to us, reach out, ask us a question, give us some feedback. It doesn't have to be nice. I mean, I'd prefer that it was, but it doesn't have to be. I got thick skin. I am just a man, though. I mean, keep that in mind. Pick up your phone, send us an email, use the hashtag HeyDan. Please join the conversation. We want to hear from you. We're going to start tonight with a conversation I know a lot of you have been having around the house and with your friends. The news has been all over it. It is coronavirus. You just saw a bunch of coverage about this on nightly news. A lot of people are afraid right now. I get that. But we want to focus on one specific fact, that there are no confirmed coronavirus cases in Oregon right now. But some of you seem to think that there are. We're getting a lot of calls. We're getting emails about it. We're going to show you a Facebook post that is being shared around the Portland area, and it's giving people this impression. But again, it is not true. Let's take a look at the post. It says, just want to let everyone know that coronavirus is finally here in Oregon. It goes on to talk about a child that was taken into the Kaiser emergency room in Hillsborough today. We blurred the poster's name, but from what we can tell, they're just a random person posted this on their personal Facebook page. Again, this is not true. In fact, we checked, that post has been taken down, but not before being shared a lot, like 200 times or so. It obviously caused a lot of alarm since we've been getting so many calls about it. So we reached out to our health officials to get some information. Kaiser says flat out that this post is not true. And Washington County Health confirms again there are 0 coronavirus cases in Oregon and 0 under investigation. Oregon Health Authority says even if someone suspected of having coronavirus thinks they might have it, doctors think they might have it, testing is only being done by the CDC. So that takes days to get the results back. So even if someone were to walk into an ER, they couldn't be diagnosed with the virus in that same day. The point is, there's a ton of misinformation out there, and it spreads very, very quickly. If you see something, if you're not sure about it, before you go sharing it on Facebook, send it in to us. Ask us. Use Facebook, Twitter, email, call us, whatever. We can help verify if it's true. Here's something else that we're seeing a lot online that at first I'll admit I didn't believe was true. And Portlanders, listen up. I know how important beards are around here. It's a chart that shows what facial hair is safe to have if you're wearing a face mask or respirator to protect yourself. This is real. It's actually from the CDC, though it is from 2017, so this wasn't created for the coronavirus outbreak. But there's some pretty good info on here. For instance, for the first time in my life, I'm happy that I can only grow as much facial hair as a 14-year-old boy. Because check it out, the Haggerty is on there and it's approved. Unfortunately, the soul patch is also approved, and I don't believe that that's something we should be encouraging. Mustaches, they're cool too for the most part. The real trouble comes with some of the iconic Portland looks, like this one, the Mayor Wheeler. It's a no, the long stubble. That's not gonna work, Mr. Mayor. And this guy, for instance, look, he's not on the chart, but it's looking like a no from here, so probably no for him too. Luckily, masks don't really do much to protect you anyway, so wash your hands. And if you have one of those villain stashes, just try not to twirl it. All right, let's start talking about our big story tonight. Listen, we have been talking about cap and trade a lot. I think that is fair to say. But today we want to shift our focus a bit to the bills caught in the cap and trade crossfire, you could say. These are the bills in jeopardy of being lost in this walkout. And there's a lot of bills that we've spent time talking about right here on this show. But we want to start with TriMet and fair enforcement. Yeah. More specifically, wildfire reduction and recovery, which is something the governor's passionate about. Now, all this controversial gun control bill, though, this is more about storage and how people store their guns. Talk about that one.
It actually was one of the things that fell apart during the last session, in part because of the cap and trade walkout.
Fair enforcement, wildfire recovery, gun control. Pat Doris here joining us now. So you've been paying attention to this. What else are we talking about here?
Well, some things that affect a ton of people. One of the biggest one is about $40 million for homeless services, homeless emergency shelters. It includes $4 million for Salem and Eugene, $2 million for Bend, $28 million for the rest of the state. Another bill would limit the cost of insulin to a maximum of $75 a month out of pocket. That would help about 287,000 people in the state that have diabetes. Then there's the lodging tax expected expected to raise around $40 million a year. The governor wants that to help pay for World Track and Field Championships in Eugene. That's a massive event for running fans, and there are a lot of runners in Oregon.
All right, what are the odds that the Republicans come back and they solve this stuff, they get it figured out?
Not good. Maybe 1,000,000 to 1, and here's why. Veteran lobbyist and KGW political analyst Len Bergstein says the reality is lawmakers are not interested in working together, looking for compromise.
99% of the legislature is elected from safe seats, highly partisan seats. So their impulse, their political survival skills are all attuned to kind of dealing to their base rather than necessarily looking for compromise. In fact, you could say that we're not in an era of compromise at all politically, locally or nationally. We're really in an era of confrontation.
DHM Research in Portland recently posted a graphic that seems to bear that out. Back in 1990, there on the left, 28 Oregon lawmakers came from districts where their party was in the minority. For example, a Republican representing a mostly Democratic district. Fast forward to 2018 on the right, and there are just 5. The people getting elected are more hardcore, more partisan. That's part of why ending this walkout will be nearly impossible.
Their own political base is saying, no, stay tough on cap and trade, or stay tough and don't allow cap and trade. So that's really, it's a very difficult period where the leadership is trying to figure out, do we have any pieces that we can put a puzzle together where people save enough face so they kind of come in. So that's the inside the building problem.
Okay, so what's next?
Well, we'll wait and see, but it's not looking good. I mean, it may just be that these days run out till the session ends. I talked with Republican leader Herman Bertschiger today. He agrees that both sides are even more entrenched than they have been, and it does not look good for compromise. This thing may just end up being a train wreck.
Pat Doris, thank you.
You bet.
Now, the session's only been going on for a few weeks, so have any of the bills actually gotten to the governor's desk? And the answer is yes. 3 of them, just 3. One of them increases the fee for getting a special license plate design in Oregon. You know, like those Crater Lake plates or the Wine Country plates. They're now going to cost you $50 instead of $30. Another bill fixes an issue between the city of Happy Valley and Clackamas County. Basically, it lets Happy Valley control its own parks from now on. And the third might have the most impact. If a student gets a concussion or other brain injury, schools will have to let them know what academic accommodations are available for them. But what about the bills that we've lost along the way? The deadline for legislators to pass the bills out of committee was midnight last night. So every bill that was written and proposed but never made it out of committee is effectively dead. So let's take a moment and remember those bills that have left us this session. I don't know if you can keep up there, but that was 50 bills dead. Let's keep them in our memories forever. By the way, there is a tiny chance that those bills can be revived. I guess like zombies or something. They would need to be added as amendments to another bill or something like that. Or potentially a committee can send it right to the floor for a vote, but that is pretty rare. If you have any questions about some of the bills that have died or really anything that's going on in Salem right now, let us know. Use the hashtag HeyDan on Twitter, but there are a bunch of ways to reach out and talk to us. By the way, not every state government screeches to a halt once a year. Up in Olympia, for instance, leaders just passed the Nikki Kuhnhausen Act, named after a girl police think was killed because she is transgender. House Bill 1687 would end the so-called gay panic or trans panic defense. That's the defense used in the past where people claim they panicked about a person's sexual orientation or gender identity and lashed out, hurting or even killing them. That bill will go to the governor's desk, and he is expected to sign it. Hey, let's take a trip now back into the KGW vault. August 21st, 2017, that was the last solar eclipse to roll through Oregon and much of the U.S. It was a huge deal, you probably remember, and you probably got sick of hearing us talk about it. But now we're going to go back even further. 41 years ago today, the last eclipse before that one, February 26th, 1979. Back when we really didn't blow things out of proportion quite as bad. Just kidding, yeah, we did.
And this morning, we are bringing you live coverage of the total eclipse of the sun. We see behind us now a shot from an airplane over Portland at an altitude exceeding that of the cloud cover that now covers most of the city. Boyd Levitt is in Goldendale, Washington. Let's see if he can talk to us now. Boyd?
So, we have hundreds of amateurs here on the top of Observatory Hill in Goldendale. They've been in sleeping bags, they've brought their breakfast, they have their little cook stoves, many of them with tripods and cameras and telescopes. Most of them amateurs, Don, and most never before, just like most of us, having seen a total eclipse of the sun.
In downtown Portland, the skyline is shot from the roof of KGW's transmitter building, and the corona, the solar corona, oh, the diamond ring effect. And we try to lock onto that shot. That's an incredible shot.
That was incredible. So was Boyd's whole look. I think we should bring that back. So cool, even by the 1979 technology standards. We're going to show little bits and pieces of that video throughout the newscast tonight, but we're going to put the whole thing online. If there's anything that you want us to maybe find in our vault, we love going down there and digging around. Pick up your phone, hit us up using the hashtag #HeyDan.
Boy, some of you are fired up about having to declare your party to vote in the Washington primary, but mostly you're just wondering why you have to do it. Well, good news. We have that answer for you. And are you trying to get in good with God, but you're also in a hurry?
You are made of dust, and to dust you shall return.
We've got an Ash Wednesday deal to tell you about. And keeping Portland weird, high over the city, when the story continues.
On very high ground here on the top of Observatory Hill in Goldendale, where incidentally the sun has just now come back again, and we could look to the west for, oh, my estimate is a good 95 to 100 miles, and we could see that shadow hurtling out of the west. It's something that you don't know how to describe.
All right, welcome back. Let's keep this thing moving here. Thank you to everyone, again, for reaching out, saying hello, asking us questions using the hashtag #HeyDan. If you haven't yet, don't worry. There's no time limit, of course, but we'll read all of your comments. We're going to read some of them a little bit later, but right now we want to get to one of your questions that somebody wrote in. A lot of you actually were writing in yesterday about a story about Washington's ballots. Arlene asked us, "Hey, Dan, could you provide more details about why Washington State is requiring people to indicate their party affiliation on the outside of their primary ballots?" Arlene, thank you. We appreciate you asking. Great question. You know, we love hearing from you using the hashtag #HeyDan. So the director of elections in King County, Washington, answered that exact question to our news partner in Seattle. Here's what she said.
Why does it have to be on the outside of the envelope? Why not on the inside?
Right. It's really important in Washington state law and vote by mail that we keep your voter identity away from your ballot. And so in order to keep those separated, we're putting it on the outside of the return envelope.
Okay, that was a little PR speak. Luckily for you, I translate PR. Basically, what she's saying is the state is trying to keep your vote separate from your party affiliation. And the way they're doing that is by putting one on the inside of the envelope and one on the outside of the envelope. Washington Secretary of State Kim Wyman says, though, the state legislature required this after deciding to move up the primary. Wyman also saying that she doesn't plan on voting because of it. So the controversy continues there. Hey, here's something that we really think is worth your time from the Willamette Week. Reporter Nigel Jacquis and Rachel Monahan learning that the Oregon sports betting app, I guess, was more of a gamble than we thought. Now, I don't bet on sports very much, so maybe you can help me out here. If you were down $5 million, that's bad, right? So the Oregon Lottery has a monthly meeting on Friday and will apparently announce that the scoreboard app will lose money in its first fiscal year. Doesn't it feel like just yesterday when the lottery kind of leaned in and whispered, "Come on, this betting app is a sure thing"? Back in June, they told us that the app would make about $6 million in the first year alone. Well, I don't know who they got setting up the lines over there, but they were about $11 million off, and they're going to lose about $5.3 million. They say to fix the problem, they simply need more people to gamble and more stuff to bet on, like college sports. But lottery spokesperson Matt Shelby told Willamette Week there doesn't seem to be much of an appetite for that in the legislature. Oregon was way ahead of the game when it passed the bottle bill in 1971, but there are some changes that went into effect you should know about, specifically about retail stores that accept those bottles. Now they might not be able to accept as many as they have in the past. There are 3 different categories now, depending on how close the store is to one of those bottle redemption centers. If the store is in Zone 1, which means fairly close to a center, they don't have to accept any bottles. If they're in Zone 2, which is a little further out, they can take up to to 24 bottles. If they're in a zone outside of that or have an exemption, they can take up to 144 per day. I'm going to be completely honest with you, the zoning is like really confusing, and it kind of changes depending on what city you even live in. So if you are a big bottle dropper, I'd recommend going on to Oregon.gov and looking for some more information there. It is really in-depth, almost a little too in-depth. Fossil fuel companies are releasing a lot more methane in the atmosphere than we originally thought. And Keely Chalmers spent the day with one of the researchers who studied ice samples to make that discovery.
And this is where we store our ice core samples. Well, it's cold in there, so let's suit up.
In the basement of Oregon State University's Wilkinson Hall.
So the temperature in here is minus 25 degrees Celsius.
Inside this freezer.
Okay, let's go.
The story of our atmosphere. Frozen inside this ice.
So these are old samples from hundreds of meters of depth below the surface that we use to reconstruct the climate and the atmosphere of the past.
Each one of these ice core samples acts sort of like a time capsule. They're full of thousands of bubbles. Each one of those bubbles contains air thousands of years old.
So by measuring these bubbles, we can figure out what the atmosphere looked like 1,000 years ago.
OSU researcher Christo Bowsert was part of a team that traveled to the center of the Greenland ice sheet back in 2013 and 14 to drill the ice samples. His team's goal? To find out once and for all where the methane in our atmosphere right now is coming from.
Methane is a greenhouse gas, and so it traps the heat and can contribute to global warming. It's the second most important greenhouse gas after CO2.
And that's a big concern, considering methane emissions have increased by about 150% over the last 300 years, really since the Industrial Revolution. But scientists never really knew where those emissions were coming from. How much from sources like landfills or livestock?
Cow farts are one source of methane.
And how much from the fossil fuel industry? That's where the ice samples came in. The researchers compared samples from before we started extracting and using fossil fuels to after. To their surprise, they found no evidence of human-caused methane in the atmosphere pre-industrial revolution. In other words,
all the fossil methane is because of human contributions, such as fossil fuels and heating our homes and things like that.
In fact, their research concluded the fossil fuel industry emits up to 40% more methane than previously thought. And since methane lasts only about 9 years in our atmosphere in comparison to the thousands of years carbon dioxide lasts, cutting down on human-caused methane emissions could make a big difference in slowing climate change.
With reducing methane, you simply get more bang for your buck. What happens is that methane is a more powerful greenhouse gas than CO2. And so by reducing methane, we get a more immediate result.
When the story continues.
Went great. Yeah.
Ash Wednesday on the road. And Guardians of Downtown keeping Portland weird.
This is what the eclipse looked like as we saw it just a few moments back above Portland. That is the shot of the corona, usually invisible except during a total eclipse.
We're back. Thanks again to everyone who's reaching out online, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff, using the hashtag HeyDan, talking to us, giving your comments and feedback. We're going to get to some of that a little later in the show. Meanwhile, dude, look, I get it. Modern life is fast-paced. Sometimes on your drive to work, you got to fit in a lot in. You got to find time to grab some coffee, get some breakfast, maybe drop some mail off, get a priest to rub ashes on your forehead. It's exhausting. Tim Gordon spent some time with people providing one of those services today.
Cruising along Southeast Webster Road, the pastor and parishioner come into view, holding their signs, offering people a drive-up Ash Wednesday.
Well, we're out here inviting people to come in for prayers and also for the ancient Christian tradition of imposing ashes. It's basically because we want to remind everybody that we're here for them and that God is here for them and that God loves them.
The Clackamas United Church of Christ is reaching out in its parking lot.
Pray for you.
And some neighbors stopped in, grateful for the spirituality they found without leaving the driver's seat.
I just thought I would stop by because I saw it online and I drove by it today too on the way to school.
Aaron, you are made of dust, and to dust you shall return. And for now and for all eternity you are held
in God's loving arms. Amen.
Thank you. Went great. Yeah, absolutely. It's always great to have a blessing to your family or to any loved ones, and yeah, we just want to get a little bit more spiritual. So
this was my idea.
All right on. Erica Basita wanted to do this, and she's glad she did.
Oh my gosh, it means so much because we're connecting, and we even had some woman drive by and say, "I love you guys," and what a blessing that is.
Well, you see the reader board here at the church today talking about Ash Wednesday, but you may recognize this reader board as one that often has something kind of catchy on it, even controversial at times. The pastor promises that'll come back after today. In Milwaukee, Tim Gordon, KGW News.
I love what you said about connection and community. That's what it's all about. Appreciate that story. Thanks to Tim. Hey, keep the messages, keep the comments, everything rolling in. Pick up your phone. Use that hashtag, HeyDan. We're reading everything, and we're going to read some of them when we come back. We're also keeping Portland weird with some loyal downtown defenders when we finish the story next.
When it got dark, did fear go through your mind, or what was your reaction?
I got a little shaky. I actually did get a little shaky because it was light and then it got totally dark, and it was just such a, incredible feeling.
Keeping Portland weird tonight are the Hawks that appear to be keeping us safe, or maybe plotting something. I'm not quite sure yet. It's a little too early to tell, to be honest with you. These two were hanging out in front of our Wells Fargo Sky camera. Yesterday there was only one. Maybe they're starting a bird gang or something. I'm not sure, but we're keeping an eye on them. If you're starting a bird gang or you see something weird, maybe prove it. Snap a photo, send it to us. Use an email, use the hashtag HeyDan on Twitter, anything, man. We're watching. When it gets to some comments, people using HeyDan tonight. This is LP Gibson. He sent me some really cool pictures. He has them hanging on his wall. He says, my dad took these back in '79 of the eclipse. If you have anything like that, please send them in to us. We'd love to see them. Then we heard from Carrie. What's up? Thanks for doing the story. You're kind of funny. Kinda. I'll take kinda. I'm kind of a lot of things. Bobby writing, hey, how do I get to see your show in real time online? Where are you posting your episodes? So we stream them on YouTube every night. So check those out. You can always find them really anytime on our YouTube channel. But follow us on Facebook and everywhere. We'll make sure that you can see it when it's happening. Then we got another one. I'm excited for the news now. Dinner is on time. I can sit and watch your show. Keep it going. I'm happy to help you stick to a routine. I appreciate it. And lastly, on Twitter, pleasantly surprised with the quality of the show. The in memoriam bit for the legislative snafu was a perspicacious, as it was unexpected. I said we wanted to reach smart people, but I think we've outkicked our coverage here. I'm going to Google that, and I'll let you know if it was positive or negative next time on The Story.